Well, welcome everybody. I'm sure we'll have a few stragglers, but I want to really be come close to me so I can make sure Bernie can hear. So I really want to be cognizant of everyone's time. I want to say a huge thank you to Hilltop Reserve for allowing us to be here for these 4 weeks and giving us this beautiful space and giving us incredibly delicious food. If anybody wants to take a tour, the staff will be available to give tours, and please do. It is such a phenomenal place. And I just have to say, I have known Susie, who owns Hilltop Reserve, probably as long as I've been at Feldman Mortuary, which is 13 years. And of people who do this work, there's no one I trust more. There's no one I think more highly of. So I cannot recommend this place high enough. And I want to share, I have a cousin who lives here, and she is so happy. And she hasn't been for many, many, many years. And once she moved in here, it just felt like now she has a social life and she's eating well and she's connected with people, and it's just, she loves it. So I cannot say enough about this beautiful place. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Jamie Sarche. I am the director of pre-planning at Feldman Mortuary. And as I said, I've been doing that for 13 years. My goal is to help people to do their own plans while they're well, while everything feels theoretical, so that on that very difficult day, all their loved ones have to do is make a phone call and the plan gets put into action. And that allows the people to just be able to be in their emotions instead of having to step out and do all their pragmatic stuff. Sometimes they're not able to step back in, and that grief remains unprocessed in their body. So having these things done long before they're needed is really a good idea. It also is smart for financial reasons because you get today's prices for services long in the future. We're going to talk about a lot more of that next week, in addition to all of the options available in Colorado, and there are a lot, and I'll look forward to seeing you for that then. But now I get to introduce my friend Maggie. And the funny thing with us, I realized 2 weeks ago when Maggie came here, I had never met her in real life. But we have had a really beautiful friendship on Zoom. And now it's even more because we get to see each other in person. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that she's been here for all these times. We've had lots of technical difficulties, and Maggie has just jumped in to try to help, and it's been fantastic. So I'm so grateful, Maggie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maggie has such a great story to tell. She has such a great thing to offer to all of you. And I'm just so excited to hear what she has to say. Maggie Gannon.
All right. Thank you. I wanted to thank Jamie for inviting me here today. Has anybody attended any of the Before the Mourning series that Jamie's offered? Yeah. So how many years have you been doing Before the Mourning?
I've been doing it for 13 years. When I first started doing this work, doing prearranged funeral planning, I thought, I can't talk to people about death because if I do, they'll think I think they're gonna die. So for a couple of years, I was trying to figure out, how do I connect with people in a way that would make everybody feel comfortable? So along with Jewish Family Service, we created this series Before the Mourning, and it's been amazing. It's really, it's allowed me to connect with so many people and learn so much.
Great. And, and it's a privilege to actually be invited to speak with Jamie, because there's been so many different people in the end of life care business that come and talk to people about death and about end of life planning. And as Jamie said, I've been here the last couple of weeks, and I was kind of contemplating and thinking about, like, what does Before the Mourning mean? Like, what does that mean to me? Because, you're grieving, but what are we going to do? Like, we're planning for our end of life. And then I started to think about, it's kind of like a farmer harvesting, right? In the spring, they plant seeds, and then they water and they fertilize, and they just constantly tend this garden, and they plant many things in their garden. And then at the end of the season, they bring in all kinds of people to help them harvest. And afterwards, they have this bountiful harvest, and they look out and they say, wow, this is the end result of all the work I've done. And that's what it reminds me about end of life planning, that one has the opportunity to look at their whole entire life and to celebrate it and to organize things before they die. And it's a gift to leave their friends and family. And to me, that's what before the mourning means. So I'm here to talk to you about the story before the mourning, right? But before we can do that, it's really important to kind of understand and talk about something that a lot of us aren't comfortable talking about. And that's the elephant in the room. So before we talk about your legacy, let's talk about the elephant that's in the room. Let's talk about what happens when we ignore the elephant in the room. And then I want to talk about how to coexist and live cohesively with the elephant in the room to really enjoy the last chapter of our life. And the way that I found a solution to embracing this elephant in the room is to remember my life and the impact I've had on others. And we do that through our legacy. So of course, this elephant is death and dying. And let's talk about the truth. What is the truth about death and dying? What happens when we die? Does our heart beat anymore? No. Everything comes to a complete and permanent halt. And dying is just as natural as being born. Right? It's just as natural as taking a breath in and taking a breath out. And it is the ultimate universal experience, because we can all talk about, oh, we're going to die, but do we know what happens after death? A lot of people, if people of faith or people who have seen can say, I know what's going to happen to me, but people who don't know, it's that ultimate experience that we're not sure what's going to happen, but everything's going to come to a complete and permanent halt. And because death is part of life, what's our mortality rate? Right? A wise woman, I heard from Jamie Sarche, is a very wise woman. She once said that our death rate mortality rate's 100%. Right? So we're all going to die. There's no escaping it. But as we're talking about death and dying, what feelings start to come up? Is there anger? And it's okay. Like you're all here today. So I know that there's some kind of acceptance happening. Yes.
It's anger depends on how you die. If I keel over right now, I'm not going to be angry.
Can you
Okay.
repeat that?
Can you repeat that?
No. Can you repeat it?
Okay. So what he said, Bernie, was that if he keels over now, he's going to be happier with that than living with a chronic illness. Is that what you're saying?
It's where the anger comes.
Right. He said that's where the anger comes. What about diversion, avoidance, denial? Right? Yeah, it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen to me. I'll deal with it later. You know, and yes.
You can.
I just stepped on your water.
Oh, thank you.
This is so Bernie can hear. There's a hearing aid on me.
So I go out into the world quite a lot, and there is a person who I run into, and every time I see him, he says to me out of the blue, we could be talking about elementary school, but he says, I sure hate your job. And it's just so fascinating. Like he's angry at me because people die.
Yeah, and to Jamie's point, last week I gave a talk to the Rotarian Club, one of the clubs here in the metro area. And afterwards, a 96-year-old veteran Zoomed me. He's 96 years old, and he said, you know, I didn't want to have to deal with this, but there's this woman at the Rotary meeting that reminded me that I have to deal with death, and I don't like to talk to you, but I'm going to. You know, so it's like, we're the Grim Reapers.
Yeah.
You know, I have a neighbor who avoids me. Yes.
Having already done this with Jamie, you did it 6 years ago. It's all part of life. If you don't, then if you deny it, You're going to end up behind the eight ball, recycling in the ground.
Here, here, I agree. So there's all kinds of feelings that come up with this, and that's okay, because guess what? We're hardwired genetically not to want to die. Like, it's survival of the fittest. Self-preservation is a natural instinct. Has anybody seen those cliff divers that run off the cliff and they just jump with a parachute? I'm not going to sign up for that. That scares me, right? Because I want to live. So not many people run towards that. So it's a normal tendency to fear our own mortality. And, you know, when we die, all of our relationships, it's not just our body comes to a complete halt, but everything we hold dear is gone. It's stripped away. And for those of you who aren't faith-based, who don't have a religious belief system, there can be a lot of fear of what comes next. You know, an agnostic or atheist, there is no God, so that's just it when I die. And like you said, to your point, death can show up at any notice. It can show up at any time in our life. You know, old people just aren't the ones who can die suddenly. Young people die every single day. And there's a learned societal stigma not to acknowledge it and not to prepare for it. And, you know, and I grew up a German Catholic. We don't feel our feelings. We don't talk about anything. It's not okay. So when my grandparents died and my parents, nobody knew what to do, because you don't talk about that stuff. We're not going to talk about it. And that was such a big loss for us, because there was no preparation and it was hard for us to grieve. And in the Mahabharata, a realized sage once asked the Hindu king, and he asked him, what was the most amazing thing you've ever seen in the world? And the king replied, the most amazing thing I've seen is that death is taking place everywhere, but no one ever thinks it's going to happen to them. Isn't that here? Like, it's true. Like, I'll talk to people about using this platform, and they're well into their 60s and 70s, and they'll say, well, I'm going to get this for my mother. Like, what about you? Like, we're all going to die, right? So it's very interesting to me. Now, there's many consequences of not pre-planning, of not doing prospective planning about this. So there's demographic consequences. So we know that seniors and those with serious illness, they're the most vulnerable demographic everywhere, not just nationally, worldwide, with low quality of life and unnecessary suffering. Only 1 out of 3 adults over the age of 65 don't have any end of life. I'm sorry, they only have one end of life plan in place. Only 1 out of 3. So by 2035, it's estimated that those people over the age of 65, there's going to be 78 million adults. 52 million won't have any plans in place. Nothing. Talk about a disaster waiting to happen. Like, we've got to do something about this. And then personally, what happens when we don't plan ahead is we're not going to die a good death. And I've seen this. I've taken care of head and neck cancer patients for 25 years.
Define a good death.
Define a good death. Well,
Define a good death. There's a definition.
so I can define a bad death.
Yeah.
Not having an advanced directive, not having any plans in place. So if you're suddenly diagnosed, you have a bad stroke, you are in a hospital bed, and there's no direction to your family about what you want to do.
Yeah, that you don't have your thing, that you think you have things left unsaid.
Yes.
Guilt, remorse, regret.
Can you repeat what Mary said?
So Mary said, when you die and you have unfinished business, you have things like guilt, remorse, and regret because you didn't say those things that needed to be said prior to death.
Especially among indigenous cultures, they totally believe in promoting things necessary to create or to have a good death.
Mm.
I
they will
agree.
say it was a good death.
And Mary also said, Bernie, that among other cultures, they embrace death, and they actually do end of life planning So not only does the person have control at their end of their life, but it helps their family grieve too. Is that what you're,
Yeah,
okay? And essentially, if you don't plan anything ahead, there's no way that you're going to be able to preserve your life or your legacy, because people only know little tiny parts of you. So how do we coexist with death and dying? How do we coexist, reach out and touch the elephant in the room? And that's through acceptance. Did you know that acceptance is the answer to all of our problems today? Acceptance, right? So death is part of life. Prepare and continue to talk about your feelings, just like we're doing it today. And obviously you must have thought about it because you're all here. So kudos to you all. I'm going to give you guys a big hug after this. And the more we talk about the inescapable truth that we're all going to die, the more it loses its power to dominate our thoughts and our lives. Because even if you haven't made any plans, but you're just starting to think about it, you're starting to break the cycle. And that's great. And another good way to, embrace the end of life is to create a legacy. Now, as far as a legacy is concerned, you can say, well, why is a legacy so important? There's actual clinical research, it's evidence-based science that tells us that when somebody remembers their life through a life review and they start talking about their life, they feel better. And it's not just feeling better like, oh, I'm happier today. It actually is a drug-free intervention used in palliative care and hospices to alleviate pain. So people who are terminally ill and they're at their end of their life, the more they can talk about unfinished business, the more they can remember, it actually decreases their heart rate. It decreases their respiratory drive. So they're just breathing more calmly. Their blood pressure comes down and they're less anxious. So it's proven that, we can regain our sense of self. That's oftentimes lost when we go through the aging process. Because when we get older, sometimes we have health problems. And then those health problems happen to be like, I wake up in the morning and all I feel is my hip pain. And then somebody else might die. And people lose their sense of self, but this gives us the opportunity to remember who we are as a person, not how our body feels and the value that we have. So let's talk about legacy. So what is a legacy to you? How would you define it?
I guess what you want to hand off to the probably family member, younger generation perhaps, what you've learned, what you think you've learned, and it's and maybe a summary in so doing, maybe a summary of who you think you are.
Absolutely. So he just said that it's a way to pass down memories and everything that you've had through your life to your past family members. So essentially, if we went around the room, everybody would have maybe the same definition, a little bit different, but it's the need and desire to be remembered for one's contributions to the world, which is essentially what you summed up. And it's how we communicate love and appreciation after we die. It can also be that ongoing foundation of life. So you can pass down things from that you learned from your parents and their parents to your generation too with your legacy. But it's definitely a way to leave a lasting footprint of who you are in the life that you're living. And there's two types of legacy, right? There's a financial legacy, and then there's that non-financial. And we're going to talk about that, the non-financial. And actually, research studies show that folks over 65 value a non-financial legacy more than a financial legacy. They said, what I've given to my children is more important to me than the money that I leave behind. So we can separate a legacy.
What do the kids have to say about that?
There you go.
You said over 65, but what about the
Yeah, that's an interesting
beneficiaries?
question. Yes. Maybe that should be the next research study. So there's two types of legacy. There's the noteworthy legacy and a relational legacy. And the noteworthy legacies are the ones that profoundly change the world, right? So who's this guy?
Edison.
That's right, Thomas Edison. And he said, when he was asked about legacy, your worth consists in what you are and not what you have. And who's this person?
Rosa Parks.
Very good. Rosa Parks, that's right. She sat on the bus and she said, I'd like to be remembered as a person who wanted to be free so other people would also be free. Isn't that beautiful? This guy,
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth. Never let the fear of striking out get in your way. And then lastly, who's this lady?
Madame Curie.
Yes, very good. Very good. Madame Curie, nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less.
What does it say about me that I thought that was Libby Borden?
Your hero.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know where that came from.
So for mere mortals such as myself, when I think about the legacy that I've left, it's a relational type legacy. It's how I've directly and indirectly created a lasting footprint by the lives that I've touched. So with a relational legacy, you can see the people here. It's how we have a domino effect, right? It's how we build something into someone else and then they turn around to give that person what we gave them. And there's different types of relational legacies. You can have a family legacy, your career is part of your legacy, the communities you belong to, part of your legacy. And then you can break it down into your life experiences, places traveled, religious organizations, all the clubs, hobbies, financial charities, that all make up the types of legacy underneath our umbrella. And a lot of people say, well, I have a purpose legacy, and that's that overreaching umbrella. That's the most important because a lot of people have different hats at different times. So when they talk about their legacy, they can break it down into the purpose legacy and a complementary legacy. And so, for example, this is Astrid Martin, and she talked about her life and with her story. And she said that my primary legacy are my 2 sons and 5 grandchildren. I also hope I am leaving a good legacy as a great aunt and a loyal and loving sister and friend. And then she picked her complementary legacy is that, you know what, I've been a school teacher and I taught for 25 years. Teaching is my legacy, my contribution that hopefully enlightened the lives of my students, whether they became actors, scientists, doctors, mothers, or yogis. And you think about, wow, how many lives did she affect and did she touch? So we asked these people, tell us about Astrid Martin. And so she left a profound legacy in others. So one student said, she helped me foster a love for science in me. She impacted my life through her encouragement, her passion, and her leadership. And she believes in her students when they don't believe in themselves. So can you imagine all the lives she touched just by being a teacher? So as we're sitting here and I'm talking about this, are you thinking about your legacy? About what your primary relational legacy would be, what your secondary legacy would be? Now?
Later.
Later? Well, you think about it. Has anything come to mind for you all now? Does anybody want to share?
I will share.
Okay.
I would say my primary legacy is my children. I'm very proud of the mother that I am and how I've raised my sons. And then I have a lot of complementary legacies. I register a ton of voters, and that's been very important in my life. I help people to be less afraid of death. So that's been very important in my life. And that's just in thinking about it in 1.5 minutes.
That's
so I'm
great.
sure
That's
there are other things.
beautiful. And
And to me, this feels like a little bit of therapy. Isn't that nice? I mean, it is what you said. Yeah, it is. It's what you said that you can, it's good to remember who you really are. It's sometimes hard to remember.
Yes.
Like her, my children, birth are my biggest contribution. I feel like that's my legacy to the world. And I have 7 children.
Wow.
And 3 of them are actually therapists that work with autistic children. And I'm 21 grandchildren. And they, just hope that you can touch and make a difference. And I love the idea that you're putting out there that you can keep that, of course, your family, but even through your career. I've been in communication all my life. I sold someone first iPhone, and someone first DSL.
Wow.
And now I'm working with seniors and selling medical systems. But I've been able to meet one-on-one with people and talk to people and hear their stories and stuff. And it's been really, it's nothing big like a teacher, but it's something, and I feel good about it.
Well, Bernie, she was sharing all of her different legacies. She has a wonderful mother who has many children and grandchildren and an accomplished career. And one of the things you just said, I have to disagree with you. You said it's not as big. What you're doing isn't as big as being a teacher. I have to call. No, I just on this one.
That was my thought too.
Yeah, because we all touch each other's lives. Even just reaching out and shaking someone's hand is a way to grow and build into somebody else. Sorry, my hands are cold, but I have a warm heart. Okay, so you have to remember, there's not one legacy or one life that's more important and outweighs another at all, because you are an individual person and we all make our own unique, beautiful contributions in our own way. So thank you for sharing. So again, like as I'm gonna share our platform with you now. And even when you go home today, kind of think about your life. Think about the impact you've had on others. And sometimes when we do a life review and we think about these things, sometimes there's sadness that comes up or regret, and that's okay. That's part of life, right? Nobody's perfect, but it's really good to actually take a step back and look at things and say, you know what? I have time now. If I can set some new goals. Or if I have unfinished business, now's the time for the unfinished business. And I'm going to celebrate everything that I love that I've done too. Right? Because that's what life's all about. So I'm by trade, I'm an adult gerontology clinical nurse specialist. So that's a big mouthful of words. And essentially, I'm an advanced practice nurse who's had the privilege or pleasure of taking care of patients with big head and neck cancers throughout their life. And as I worked with these patients, we would always say, we're going to cure you. We're going to get that disease out and you're going to move forward. Well, sometimes our patients wouldn't live, they would die. And we lacked the tools we needed to have these important conversations, and we lacked technology. So that was really bothering me. I lost a sister. My sister died from breast cancer in 2013. And she was somebody who never, ever, ever would even consider wrapping her hands around making end-of-life plans, even though she had terminal metastatic disease. And when she died, she didn't have a will. There was she told the family she was gonna live, and they all believed her. So everybody was just shocked. And it was one of the worst experiences I've ever lived through in my entire life, because we weren't allowed to grieve and prepare for her death. We just had to react at the end of it. And then recently, my husband in 2020, he's alive and well now, but he was diagnosed with leukemia right in the middle of the pandemic. And when that happened, I knew then and there that I had to do something. I had to try to change this. So I created a personal legacy preservation platform called My Living Obituary, where people can never worry about leaving any words left unsaid, and they can tell their story. So I used clinical research that I talked about earlier, and I integrated it into this platform. So I wanted to make sure that when people use the platform, there was an increase in quality of life and that they felt happier and regained a sense of self of who they were. So I utilize clinical research to assist anyone sick or healthy plan for a good death by capturing their legacy through storytelling. And on the website, you can do two things. Essentially, you're creating a whole platform that's a permanent home for your life story. And I'm going to show you how it works. And with the life story that with the life story that you're sharing, it's going to be used as your own obituary after you die. And the other beautiful, choice, or the other option that you have with this website is you can create a living legacy letter. Has anybody ever heard of a legacy letter? So a legacy letter is a way to communicate last wishes, hopes, and dreams for the future to a group of people or one person. So you can actually write letters on this site to people that you love. If you have many children, you can write your children one letter and send it to them, or you can just choose to send it to one person. Or if you belong to the Rotary Club or the Kiwanis Club, and you want to write them a letter to tell them how much it meant to you to be in this community, you can also do that too. So any questions about anything that we talked about before I jump to the website? Okay, let me jump over here.
Did you already log into the Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And for some reason. Oh, good. There it goes. Oh, no. Go away. All right. So this, if you were to log on to the site, wait a minute.
Maggie, I have a quick question.
Yes, what's that?
Is this like a website that you give someone like a password to, that they open upon your death? Like,
Yeah, I'm gonna explain how it works,
Okay.
but it's really neat because all you have to do is enter their email address and they receive your story and everything after you die.
after you die.
After you die, and I'm
Okay.
gonna explain it. So if you were interested in this, you would go to mylivingobituary.com, which this is the landing page, and then you sign in. And this is staging, so this is not live. Just so you know, I'm not sharing someone's true story with you. Just bear with me as I pull up somebody's obit story. Okay. Thank you. So what you're going to do with this is you're going to, in seven easy steps. Can you all hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, so you're going to start with 7 steps. And I created this for seniors too, because I want this platform to be accessible for all age groups. So you put your basic information in first, your name, your date of birth, and where you live. Then you're going to choose an executor to publish your story out after you die. So you enter the first name, last name, and their email address. And when you hit continue, this sends that person an automatic email notification to accept and to become your executor for this platform. Then remember, we're giving people a voice at their end of life, where a lot of times our choices are stripped away. So we're putting you back in the driver's seat. So you can choose to tell us as much about your life or as little about your life as you choose. So step 3 is users select communities that they've been a part of throughout their life. So you can look here, what hometown, where did you grow up? Where did you raise your kids? Where did you spend the golden years? And then what schools did you go to? So you can write about, you can enter your schools, and then all the clubs and organizations you belong to throughout your life. And that's step 3. And then step 4 is the story. And this can be overwhelming to people who aren't used to writing and they're like, I don't even know where to start. So we created a writing center. And with the writing center, there's examples of other people's stories. And I infuse the clinical research into the life review. So you can click on the life review here, and it is going to prompt you to write about things that resonate the most with you. So there's 7 different categories. And does anybody want to choose one to look at? What's that? Okay, so your life's meaning and purpose, life events and special moments, your last wishes and messages, ancestry and family, your relationships, hobbies, sports, clubs, organizations, and your career awards, roles, and achievements.
Meaning and purpose.
What's that?
Meaning and purpose.
Right, meaning and purpose. Okay, thank you.
The hardest one.
Hardest thing. Life's meaning and purpose. So you click on here and there's prompts. So you can take what you like and leave the rest. So what do you value and love most in your life? What are you most proud of? Are there any miracles you experienced in your lifetime? Life-changing experiences. Share what you are most grateful for. So these are all prompts to get you going. And you don't have to use these prompts, but you can if you need to. Does anybody want to click on any of the other ones?
But ancestry.
Okay, ancestry. What is your family lineage? What geographic region did they immigrate from? How many generations ago? In your family line, who are you most alike or have most in common with and why? Who is the most famous person in your bloodline? Favorite family holiday? So there's lots of things to write about. So that's the life review. So you can go up and you can edit your story at any time. You can work on this off and on and write about it. And then sometimes people have a hard time writing and they can connect with our professional obituary writer. And she's an author. She authored end of life books. And her name's Heidi. Let me pull her up here. So you can actually sign up to take a class or she'll write it for you. And that's the writing center. And then the next step are photos. So you can upload as many photos as you like. There's unlimited space. So a primary photo and any meaningful photos that you would like to share with people. You can choose a charity to donate to in your memory. And then, and I'm sorry, what is your name?
Mary.
Mary. My sister's name is Mary, this is the part of the profile where you can choose who you'd like to notify or share your legacy with after you die.
Okay.
Now, as a nurse, this is very important to me because sometimes our patients would die of natural causes and they wouldn't show up for their appointment. And we walk this journey with them and we'd miss out on the funeral. We weren't able to say goodbye. So you can actually enter your doctor's email address, the dentist, the chiropractor, the religious organization you belong to. Throw the church up there, the synagogue, all the clubs you belong to, enter their emails so everybody can be notified together and grieve together as a community. And then at any point you can go back and preview what your obituary is going to look like. So this is kind of what your story is going to look like. Here's an example of communities and then pictures. And you can scroll through the pictures like this to kind of look at everything.
The question would be, are you saying that you are gonna, you're gonna write your own obituary?
At the end of it, yes, like whatever story you want to share.
Isn't that a little bit interesting about? Because I write what I think of myself. So wouldn't it be better if somebody writes the obituary, kids, the influence, whatever, their feelings?
So this doesn't necessarily have to be what goes in the newspaper. This is like you telling your story of who you are. But it could be what goes in the newspaper.
Yeah, and that's a good question, and that's a personal choice. Because there's millions of people who love writing their own story because their thoughts are, my grandchildren only know one part of me. And this is a way for me to share my entire life with my family. You know, because I've helped many people through this process. And when they share this with their children and with their grandchildren, there's this look of wonder and awe in their family members. And they said, we had no idea, you never told this to us before. And it's all personal preference too, because there's dynamics within families too, right? But yeah, somebody might want to write a tribute to themselves. I don't know, but a lot of times this is more of a way to convey who they were as a person in their life adventures, what they experienced and things like that. And then lastly, I asked you about the living legacy letters. And these really are the most meaningful words one can ever write. And they communicate love and learning. And it's a permanent way to bridge the gap between life and death. We encourage people just share from the heart. And what you do is when you want to start a new letter, you want to create a letter, you hit a letter. And the clinical research happens, like we talked about the improvement in quality of life. That happens when we share our story in the letters before we die. So there's an opportunity to send personal letters to one person or groups of people before you die to gain closure. And it's such a gift of love, and it's so endearing. Has anybody ever gotten a letter from someone that they love that was going to die? Or did somebody ever write someone else receive a letter from somebody that was just their friend telling them how much they meant to them?
Yeah. Okay.
How did it make you feel?
Maybe angry, maybe upset. My wife, because she had bypass surgery, she's going to die.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Of course, the letter was good.
Yeah.
That is the conclusion that she was drawn, they'd be mad.
Yeah, there is a lot of anger that comes when people we love die, for sure. And last night I was looking through my memory book, and I had a best friend in my life. She was 24 when she died. She died a day before her wedding, but she was a character. And she wrote me a letter, and I don't know if she had this foreboding feeling that she was going to die, but she started the letter out, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And she said, "Dear Maggie, you're my best friend, and this is the letter to tell you how much I love you." And I was like, wow, that I have that letter now to remember her. And I read through, she was talking about the funny times that we had in college. And I thought, wow, if she hadn't written this, like I was starting to remember things that I had forgotten. So I believe she's in heaven somewhere. And this is how she's reaching me now through this letter that she wrote me 25 years ago. So that was really beautiful. So with these legacy letters, you can look up on the screen here, you can choose one person that you would like to send the email to, or you can add as many recipients as you want. And then you can type the message, so whatever you want to say, and save it. And then the good part is you can share any meaningful photos with them. And this includes like pictures of favorite recipes that have been in the family forever. You can upload family recipes onto the site, or just pictures of you guys together, or whoever this is. But this is the definite way to send a personalized message to one or two or a group of people versus everybody within your community. And I'll just quickly show you a preview of what that looks like. Up here. So if you were to receive a letter it would say a personal living legacy from this person's name, asterisk heart to yours. And then there's a, whoops, I chose the wrong one. And then there's, you can see the whole message and everything underneath it. So let me look at drafts. Here we go. So there, this is a letter to her daughter, and then she uploaded photos of recipes and other special pictures. So that's it. Any questions? That was a lot of information.
Like what I was thinking is, there was a time, a few years back, where I went through a transformative personal period in my life. And I sat down and I wrote some letters, like to my 8th grade history teacher.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And to tell him, I mean, some of these, we have to be careful if you're not waiting till you die, or they're gonna have to be dead too. The influence that he had on my life. To strive to do things right. And, a love of education. And like my English teacher and, people along the way that influenced me. And that's what this is about.
Yes, it is. This part of it is, and you can choose to send it now, or you can send it after you die too. It's your choice, but I agree. Yes. No, it's actually, it's $25 for a permanent legacy site. So after somebody dies, that site is up there forever, so their family can go back to it and read your story and look through the pictures that were important to you. Sure. Yes.
Can it be a work in progress? I mean, can you go and add and?
Absolutely, it is. You can go back and edit this at any point because, we could die tomorrow, but a lot of us won't. So this is a work in progress. So you can go back and add to your story to say, oh, I would like to share my story about the trip around the world or what this meant to me. I don't know, whatever you want to share about. Any other questions? Yes, Bernie.
How do you distinguish what you're doing from an oral history?
Meaning like an outline, if somebody would say like during this period, I lived here and worked here. Is that what you mean?
Broader than that. This is my life. I'm going to tell you about it.
You can use as much space as you want to write the story. You're not limited.
I think he's wondering the difference between if you would just sit down with somebody and tell them your life versus doing it on this platform.
So are you saying what's the difference between using this platform versus just talking with someone?
In front of the camera with a microphone.
Oh, so with the video.
It can be done that way. It can be done just orally or recorded. Or with a person doing interviewing, asking questions. You end up with what that person thinks is important in his or her life.
Right. So we're adding videos to this platform. So at some point in this year, you'll be able to make a video if you choose to. And as part of that life review, like you're talking about, you can do this with somebody that you love and they can help you like go through these different periods and think about how you want to craft your story. Yes.
I love your shirt. I
Let-
love your logo.
Can I
Thank
say,
you.
Can you get those online? Can you get the order?
Yes, I'll show you where I ordered this.
That's cute.
Okay, thank you.
So going back to Bernie for just a second, I mean, you could do that.
Sure.
But oftentimes when somebody's going to do an oral history, that's going to be kind of a one-time thing. If you do it with a professional person, it's going to cost thousands of dollars. And this is a way that you can do it in whatever time frame you want to do it. You can keep revisiting it. You can keep doing this. The other thing that's really different about this is you're setting up who it should be sent to. So let's say I want to send a letter to my teacher. I think that was a great idea. And in fact, in college, I sent a letter to my 5th grade teacher and thanked him for giving me my social justice mindset.
My fifth grade teacher is the one who realized I need eyeglasses.
Wow.
Oh.
5th grade is an important time, I think.
Yeah.
But so that's really, there's lots of differences. But you should do what matters to you and what fits you. So it's lovely that there are lots of ways to do things. But this is such a great way to be able to share things with people after you're gone. They can go back and look at it whenever they need to. And from a grief perspective, to be able to kind of touch your loved one in this way, I think it's incredibly meaningful.
Any other? Yes.
Recipient of one of these messages, send it on to other people, or is it just private and limited once they get it?
So the question was, can a recipient forward this on to other people? And the answer is yes. That there's a place on the platform where you can share it out to whoever you choose to. And you can also, there's a guest book, people can share their messages back and forth. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. It's my pleasure. Just whatever you do, please do something. You don't have to use my platform, but your friends and your family will thank you for it, for sure.
And I would like to say that if you want this platform, the first 10 people who make an appointment with me, I will give them this platform. I will gift it to them. And Sheldon, if you want this platform, since you've already met with me, I'm happy to gift it to you as well.
Wow. Thank you, Jamie.
My pleasure. Ooh, sorry.
Let's give a round of applause.